In my previous video for this project, I had discovered some excessive play in the conrod. There were also some issues with the piston and rings, but I'll have to get back to those in another episode. Today is about splitting the cases to get the crankshaft out. With the head, cylinder, and piston removed, the next step to split the cases is to remove the clutch cover. An impact driver is used to break the 5 straight slot screws free. With the screws out, some taps with a rubber mallet help break the gasket seal. Under the cover, we see the primary drive, the clutch, and the kickstarter. In lieu of the special tool, a pair of bolts can be threaded into the clutch with nuts that are used to compress the clutch springs. Once compressed enough, the retainer ring can be pushed out of its groove. The clutch springs sit in cups on the cover plate and press against the first drive plate. Behind it, driven and drive plates alternate in the clutch basket. The next step is to get the clutch hub nut off, but again, I didn't have the special tool. Some trial and error led to a solution that involved mounting the sprocket to the other side of the shaft and using the chain with a screwdriver through it to hold it in place while using the impact driver. With the nut off, I had to once again find a way around the lack of a special tool. I had been told that the hub could be levered off with a pair of screwdrivers without too much difficulty, but it was on there tight. After a couple of failed attempts that I neglected to record, I realized that the splines on the shaft were pretty packed with grime, so I cleaned them out as best I could. After a lot more prying, I finally got a little movement, remembered to turn on the camera, and followed it with this big movement. Then I collected the 15 bearings that sit behind it. Then it was on to the primary drive sprocket and its nut. To keep the crank from spinning, I found a bolt and wrapped it with a bit of electrical tape. I put this through the small end of the conrod. Like everything else in this project, it didn't want to come off either, so more heat was employed. The sprocket is on a tapered shaft with a keyway. This should pop off with a couple wood wedges under the sprocket and a sharp whack with a soft hammer. But after a few failed attempts, I realized it wasn't going to come off this way, and set about figuring out a way to make my own version of the special tool. The primary sprocket and clutch basket are removed as a unit. Then the last thing to come off on the left side of the engine is the kickstarter. I'm hoping this isn't too difficult to retension when the time comes. The only things that need to come off on the right side are the two oil seal retainers, so the impact driver is used again. And the retainers are pried off their gaskets. Each of the 11 case screws was cleaned out with a pick to make sure the bit would seat snugly, and then sprayed with PB Blaster and left overnight. Then it was more heat and impact to break them loose. I'm employing the old trick of using a piece of cardboard to keep my screw locations straight. With the screws out, 2 of the motor mount screws are threaded in from the right side, and the engine is lifted from the middle portion. The manual says to just grab it with pliers, but I'm using a rubber strap and a vice grip. Then, while lifted, the 2 screws are tapped to drive the left side case away from the right side. Now I just have to package this up and send it out to be rebuilt. The rebuild will clean up this corrosion on the crankshaft, and new bearings and seals will be on hand when it comes time for reassembly. As always, thanks for watching.